It was really, really good. It was really, really, really cool. I was talking to Jesus all the time. This guy at school, he's a real jerk. Can you do something about him? You know, all that kind of stuff. But also serious stuff. My parents, please take care of my parents. Please take care of. I want to get an A on Friday. So my father's not mad at me. Jesus, please give me an A. So I was doing all that really pretty strongly. In fact, I was going to church many times when my friends stopped going to church. You know, even in college. Kind of embarrassed to admit this a little bit, but even in college, when you go to college, you guys will learn, sorry, I should say this in front of your parents, but when you go to college, you'll discover something very interesting, which is that you don't have to follow what your parents say anymore. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying that's an option. So, all of my friends really stopped going to church pretty quickly, but I kept going to church. And not because my parents wanted me to, because I really, I liked being in church. I liked praying. I liked talking to Jesus. But I had this problem, this real problem. It's because I would see suffering on TV. I would see suffering. You'd see war. You'd see disease. That time in the 1970s and the 1980s, the big thing was the famine. Africa, in Ethiopia, at that time, and then the rise of the AIDS sickness, where all these people, and some people because of lifestyle activities, maybe, but also many babies, because their mother had AIDS, and then the baby is born, and the baby automatically has AIDS. So this stuff really hit me. You know, so every day I'm going to church. Not every day, but most days I'm going to church. I'm praying for this. But I'm looking at this world and I'm saying, you know, every day I'm like, God, I love you, 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 Jesus, I love you, Jesus, I thank you for everything, thanks for making this wonderful world. But then I'm looking at this world and I'm going, you guys didn't do such a good job. Why'd you make it like this, you know? Why is there kids suffering? Why is my age, there's people who I was doing pretty well. I mean, I didn't come from a rich family, but, you know, we had a good situation. Our house was a big house. I had 8 brothers and sisters. We had 3 or 4 cars. And we had a beautiful summer house by the ocean in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which is a very beautiful area. So it was not bad. You know, we had a boat, little boat. So I spent my summer by the ocean. That was not bad. But I would look at my life and I would say, I have all of this. Not a lot, but it was comfortable. And then I look at the world and I said, there's all this suffering. That doesn't make any sense. Why? So this started this real questioning in my mind. So I would go to the religious leaders and I would say, why? You know, why is that? Why? My sister was a nurse. My sister's still a nurse. My oldest sister, and she would work at the hospital in the 1970s. And she would come home from the hospital. And my mother is a very, very, very smart woman. My mother has a PhD in biochemistry. Very smart. She reads philosophy, history, literature. Very smart woman. Biochemistry. I hate chemistry. My mother teaches chemistry, but it's so difficult, I hated it. But I was lucky because she was a high school teacher. I had the books with all the answers in them. So I was getting A's on the tests. I wasn't even studying. But, sorry for that. But my mother is also a very devout Christian, very devout Catholic. She really believes very strongly in the church and in God and heaven and this plan. So my sister would come home from work when I was a little kid, and I would be doing my homework. And my sister came home from the hospital some night, I remember. And she said, Mom, my sister was she was a nurse who worked in the part where babies are born. So a midwife helping the babies to be born. And so she came home from the hospital once, and she said, "Mom," and she was shaking. She was shaking while she was talking. And she said, "Mom, today in the hospital a baby was born and no arms, only like a fish. 무릎이처럼. Only that." Or another, she said, "And another day a baby is born, the lungs outside the body. Can't live this." And so my sister was saying, "Why?" Because my mother very believes in God. Why? Why is that? Why? What kind of God makes this baby cannot live? Why? So this really hit me. My mother had no answer. My mother could not say why. She just said, "Oh, that's God's plan. We cannot know it. That's God's plan." But even when I was a little boy, I loved my mother very much. All of you do. But I thought, that answer, that's bullshit. I said, that's not the real answer. But that's what she believed, you know. So at that point, this doubt became very strong about that teaching, about that worldview, about that claim, about that value system, about that philosophy, about that outlook. I said, it can't answer. Very simple question. It can't answer. Very simple question. They just say, everything we can tell you, but difficult, we don't, it's God's plan. We cannot know it. So at that point, when I was a little kid, I said, this teaching cannot help me completely. It cannot help me. It cannot help me. So I grew up, but I was still very, I went to school, all my friends were Catholic and Christians, so I went to school. But when I got to college, and I began to really see, I had friends who were friends in college who were gay, but the church said that's bad. I said, but they're born like that. Why God make someone like that and then say bad? So more and more, I saw this does not connect with life. It's some old view that doesn't work anymore. So I was searching, very much searching. So if this is not true, then what? Every day I love you, God. I love you, God. But I thought, this God idea doesn't make sense. Does not make sense. Doesn't make sense. Then I thought, also, I love God, but then what am I? Then why did I come here? So that began this question, this very deep question. And I won't tell you many details how I tried to answer that question. Sunim's, your parents are in the room. But I tried many things to check that out. But eventually I started looking into philosophy, especially German philosophy. You guys, where's she? Violin. You guys have violins. The best violins. Well, Stradivarius is not so bad. But the best violins are like Austrian and German. The best cars, German. The best machines, shavers, drawn. Germans have a very strong tradition of very deep thinking and very intense investigation. Most of our medicine and physics comes from German philosophy. So I was also looking into that because my family is German. My family's background is German. My passport is American, but my ethnic group, my Minjok, is German. So I was studying philosophy, and I really liked this philosopher. His name was Arthur Schopenhauer. Really great philosopher. Also, I knew Beethoven and Mahler. They were also my teachers. They're great philosophers. It's not music for cooking. That's you listen, that's philosophy, that's spiritual experience when you listen deeply to a symphony or piano concerto. So these guys were my teachers, German philosophers. And this one philosopher that I read, his name's Arthur Schopenhauer. He's a great, great, great philosopher, 250 years ago. And he analyzed all the world's religions. He just, and he analyzed, this is the good point, this is the bad point, this is the good point, this is the bad point, this is the good. And he just went through them, just brutal, really strong, criticized. This point, this point, this point, this point. But he got to this Buddhism, but he would always say, I didn't know Buddhism. I was, this style. But he would always say, if there's something in this world, if there is some teaching which really matches my thinking, that's Buddhism. Or he would say, the only teaching in any religion or philosophy, the only teaching which really sees this world as it is, that's Buddhism. So I was shocked. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I decided to look at Buddhism. Boom, first book I read, completely, it was like reading my own private thinking that I always thought before. My own, it completely made sense. It was like reading science. It was like, boom, reading my own thinking. So I started practicing. But that time, I didn't know Korean Buddhism. I didn't know Korean Buddhism. I didn't know anything about Korea. I didn't know anything about Korean culture. I didn't know anything about Korean Buddhism. I didn't know anything about Korea. So I found that my first Buddhist book was Japanese Buddhism book, very famous book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I read that. Then I just began meditating. This was after I graduated from Yale. So as soon as I graduated from Yale, as soon as I finished my studies, I wanted to meditate. So I did a little bit of this and practice, but I didn't have a teacher yet. I really wanted a Sunim. I couldn't find a teacher. So I went to Harvard, to Hyungak, to a divinity school. I still had some of this Christian mind. It was hard to let go. So I went to Harvard. And while I was at Harvard, this interesting figure came to Harvard. Very interesting man. There was posters all over. Came to Harvard for a talk. His name was, I couldn't even say it. It was Jundeungsa from Korea. But he was a Zen master, so okay. I went, boom. In front of all of our professors, my Harvard professors were there. They couldn't, his teaching was so clear. It was so amazing. So I asked for a meeting with him. And I was able to meet him. So I went, I met him, I bowed to him 3 times. Then we were sitting like this, we're sitting like this, facing each other. And I was a student, so I hair. Yes, my name is Mo. I'm a student at Harvard. I understand this. I understand that. I understand philosophy. I like Christian philosophy. I like Buddhist philosophy. I want to make a bridge. I want to connect Buddhist philosophy with Christian philosophy. Blah, 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 blah. I'm impressing him with how intelligent I am. Sounds like a good dog. Maybe he'll give me something to eat. This is, I understand this, I understand this. Then 갑자기, who are you? And he's pointing at me. He's like, he's closer than us guys. And I look up and who are you? It was like Rangi, it was like tiger. It was like a scary tiger in front of me. And I went, oh. my name is my American name. I said, my name is And he said, that's your body's name. Your mama gave you that name. Before that, you had no name. I don't want your body's name. Who are you? Oh. All of my thinking, all of my Yale education couldn't help me. All of my Harvard education couldn't help me. All of my Catholic school education couldn't move. Yeah. Brendan, what's your Korean name?
Kim Sung-jun.
Huh? Sung-jun.
Kim Sung-jun.
Yeah, Kim Sung-jun. You have a Korean name, Kim Sung-jun. Yeah. Brendan, your friends, your buddies call you that. I have a Korean name, Hyungak. I have a passport name. You can Google it. But those are not my real name. Yeah? One name my mama gave me. One name Sultan Kusni gave me. But that's just a name. That's not my real name. So this was amazing. He said, who are you? None of my Yale professors talked to me like that. None of my Harvard professors talked to me like that. It was like a kung fu. It was like, some of you guys have done kung fu or maybe even in taekwondo. It's like I was this clever guy with a knife. I understand this, I understand this, I can do this, I can do this. And this master came up to me and went, he took my own weapon and turned it like into like. So I was shocked, this method, this technique. So he said, who are you? And I said, I don't know. Then he said, study that. You don't know you. Study that. So when I heard that way of teaching, I said, in my mind, I said, this is my real teacher. Okay? So this is just teaching. You can see, it's not midora. If you believe this, you will get something good. If you believe like this, you will get something. It doesn't teach like that. It's about really looking. It's about really waking up. So that's just a simple story about how I chose this tradition, how I chose this teaching, because of seeking, because of really looking, how find myself. Religion could not give that to me. Philosophy could not give that to me. Books are fun. Philosophy is fun, but it could not answer it for me. Okay, it's like a key. You put the key in front of you, the key to this. But the key does not open the door. Even its perfect key, made of gold and diamonds, perfect. You have to pick it up and use it. Other religions teach, if you have this key, if you have our key, you are okay, you are saved, you're good, you're one of us. And you can see those sorts of religions make most problems in this world. So, really powerful thing. You guys are still in your student phase now. You got to study. And that's great, because you got to do something in this world. You got to have an ability, you have to have a skill, you have to have something you can do in this world. But anyway, it's not a bad deal. Mom and Dad are paying for everything for the next couple of years. Believe me, when you get out of that, it's a little bit different feeling. So you're in a situation where you have to study. You don't have to go off and do this meditation stuff. You have to study now. That's your job until you're independent. But I want you to know that this is an extreme extremely valuable tradition. Extremely valuable. I'm going to say something a little bit maybe controversial right now. But my teacher said it. This came from my teacher, this great Korean huntsman. And this word has been published in some of his lectures. He said something very interesting. In the 1980s, some American student said, "Oh, Sunim. Nowadays, Christianity very popular in Korea. Many people in Korea want to be Christian, choosing Christianity. Churches are very big." This is already 1980s, maybe early 90s. This person, very big, it's very good. But in America, some people choosing Buddhism. So they said to him, "What is the difference?" Because Korean people, it's a Buddhist tradition, but choosing Christianity. But many American people, raised Christian like me, choosing Buddhism. So they asked my teacher, "What is your view of this? Is it the same action? This crossing over, is it the same action?" And what I'm going to say to you is, he's a Korean. He's a little bit criticizing something about Korean society I think you can understand. And I'm going to tell you, but it's his view, not mine. He said something very interesting. He said most people in Korea choose Christianity for social approval because of social pressure. In order to fit in with some group or try to make successful business. He said this. You can look it up. I don't know if you can Google it, but it's out there. So he said, anyway, it's on a recording. He said, most people who are Korean who choose Christianity do it because of social pressure. But he said, but in my experience, in his Western people who choose Buddhist teaching do it not because